So I recently introduced a series called The Power of Media, because I speak here often enough now that I run a good amount of rallies that I need something to keep speaking about, because I'm not as amazing as Rick and can't come up with a whole 3-act structure every week. So I just want to talk about media in a lot of interesting ways, and ways that have to do with social justice. And last week I quickly brought up the idea, quickly brought up the idea of protest songs. And the idea there's a lot of talk about how there's less protest songs than ever, and where did they go, and where did that energy go? There still really is a place in activism for music if we know where to look. And I shared some lyrics from a band called Drumming Bird called Love Thy Neighbor with or Without Papers. And I think it was interesting because it's a real current song that sounds like old-fashioned folk songs. It carries that energy, it carries that spirit, and in that way, I think it's attractive to a lot of us who grew up with that music. But I also think it's really worth getting into the idea of how, as music has changed, this has changed what political and activist music looks like. We currently live in a world where music is very often defined by aesthetics more than it is genre ideology. I think you can see this clearest in punk music, a genre of music I felt very close to my heart. For a long time, punk was about challenging establishment ideology, pushing back, creating spaces for people who were ostracized or pushed out of traditional social spaces. It was actively political, openly political against current administrations. But we don't see that as much these days. By the time I was growing up with punk, the most popular version of punk was pop punk. And pop punk mostly sang about how much your girlfriend made you mad by leaving you on your summer break, so you're going to drown your sorrows with your friends on the dock. It was a very different energy, and while there still was some bands doing punk, it was very clear that the aesthetics of punk, the sounds, the styles, were becoming something all their own, apart from what the ideology meant. Some people just wanted to sound like that for various reasons. And I do think this is reasonable. This isn't a bad thing that happened, but it does, I think, make it harder to know where to look for the music that we are looking for in activist spaces. When genres, even genres like folk and punk, which have historically been extremely political, aren't as political. And in this case, I think we have to admit that if all of this is aesthetics, what it kind of comes down to is this music can pop up anywhere. Because it's not about the style of music as much anymore, it's about how they approach it. If they see their music as part of this moment, as something they want to engage with. And to show that, I want to talk about 2 quick songs. The first is a song song by Jenny Baker. Jenny Baker is, to base it, if anybody here listened to her, you would probably come across with the same idea. That is a pop star. She is a typical modern-day pop star. She writes pop songs in the stylings of Taylor Swift and Gracie Abrams, who are on the radio. She makes very, very good music, in my opinion, but she makes traditionally pop music that sound like just about your feelings and about breakups and stuff like that. And then she released a song called America the Beautiful. And I would like to share with you an excerpt from this song. Time moves on, but we go backwards. Keep repeating the same patterns. Every headline's a disaster, thoughts and prayers, and forget after. America the Beautiful, where killing's constitutional, where schools are just like funerals, and somehow it's excusable. America, America, oh ain't it beautiful. And that is a song that she not only put out, and I was already kind of blown away as none of her other music pointed towards any of this, but she put it out early on Bandcamp because apparently her fans wanted it for their No King's Day rallies. Isn't that fascinating? Instagram pop star putting out a pop song about America's current climate to her followers because they wanted it for the rallies and protests they were going to. It still has its place in our music. Activism still has its place, music still has its place in our activism. It's just coming through in different ways than we've seen it previously. I want to continue by talking about a band called Durry, or at least I think that's how you say it. It's one of those bands I've never actually heard the name of spoken aloud. Durry is what's known as a TikTok band. TikTok bands are an entire genre of bands who get popular on TikTok. And they tend to have a certain kind of sound or energy because certain things are popular with certain populations, generations, certain types of people. But the point is, they are part of the current kind of main way music is getting distributed to younger people. And they write a lot of songs about life, growing up, nostalgia, looking back at your past, trying to be comfortable with your relationships. But they also write some songs that have a bit of a different tone. And here I would like to read you some lyrics from Worse for Wear by Durry. Drowning in an ocean of debt you swore would pay for itself. Now we can't pay the rent on all the houses you bought for yourself. Trickle down sounds just like swimming upstream, picking up the scraps like a tree growing upside down. What's the point of pulling on these bootstraps when you've glued them to the ground? And that reads to me as very traditional political music. But if you listen to it, it's in a package I would never expect. I think maybe music and in activism is as prevalent as ever. The world's just changing, and of course media changes with it. But songs are still there for us if we want it. It's just more spread out and harder to find. It seems like every part of this series is going to end with me going, well, guess navigating media just requires a lot more work these days. But in this case, I think there really is a bright side. Media is powerful, and it has actually provided us with more avenues than ever to engage with political and activist sentiments in all types of art. It has provided us with new ways to engage in ways that will enrich our lives and activism in ways it never has before. And honestly, when I think about it that way, it's actually kind of dang exciting that protest songs are so different than they used to be. They're different songs for a different world. Thank you.